Pittsburgh Steelers are picking 21st overall in the 2025 NFL Draft. What will they do with their first selection? My name is Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we are breaking down our first three-round mock draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the upcoming 2025 NFL Draft. And we're going to break it down here in a second, but before we do that, hit that subscribe button, tackle that bell to get notified when videos come out. Leave a like and a comment. Let us know what you want to see the Steelers do in the upcoming draft. And Ryan, let's pull this up here. So we did a full three-round mock draft. You can see a couple of the picks before and after. We ended up going with Luther Burden here, the receiver position, and really just a skill position player, room in general, is such a major need for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. So they have George Pickens. They re-signed Pat Freiermuth. Their running backs, they are free agents, and I'm sure they will re-sign at least one of them. But even just in general, though, too, this is no matter who the quarterback's going to be, and that's a problem in and of itself, whether it is Russell Wilson or Justin Fields, whoever they end up re-signing there also, if it is not both guys. But they just need to get just more like athletic skill position players just in general. And Luther Burden is going to be that guy. I think what's perfect about Luther Burden to this is he's the exact opposite of what they have right now. You go look at George Pickens. He's that deep threat guy. Pat Freiermuth, he's your solid traditional Heath Miller like Pittsburgh Steelers type tight end. So I think Luther Burden would come in and would just be a good yin and yang to what they currently have right here. I think Arthur Smith would really like to have a guy like him in that offensive system that they can move around and can also just be a guy that you just throw the ball to him like real quick, like kind of run the ball through the air and get a lot of yards after catch. Because Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, you would know better, or you can confirm for me, but he was a big yak guy at Missouri.
Yeah, and he more so last year. Their whole offense kind of took a big production hit this past season. But 2 years ago, yeah, he was phenomenal. And once you got the ball in his hands, he was really solid. And even then, like there were at moments this year where they did a good job of getting him the ball in space, and like he definitely showed what he could do. But there just wasn't as many opportunities this season for him, and as sad as that is, I think it's ultimately going to work out in his favor because I think he's going to go to a much more competitive team, falling a little bit more in the draft. He's not going to make as much money, but so there's that. But he's a really solid receiver. My biggest thing when I watch him is like I go back to from 2 draft classes ago when you had the run of 4 receivers. You had the Jordan Addison, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, and Jackson Smith and Jigba. And like to me is going to fall in that range, and that's exactly where he did. And I think that he's going to be a really solid pass catching option for the Steelers with whatever quarterback that they decide to go to. I think he just complements that room so well, and he's going to be a threat at all 3 levels of the field. They can get him the ball in the screen game, as you know, Arthur Smith loves to call those.
Yes, he does.
I think he would just be a really good fit up there in Pittsburgh if he makes it here. And so there are a few other options. Egmeka Egbuka went the pick after this. That could be a potential slot option there as well. He caught a lot of first downs this season. They could also go with Jack Sawyer, Amarian Hampton, or Siobhan Ravel, depending on what their edge rush situation looks like this at the end of this offseason, what their running back situation looks like if Najee Harris returns, or what. And then Siobhan Ravel, go and get another big athletic corner opposite of Joey Porter Jr. I think that would be a good fit too.
Yeah, it's Pittsburgh Steelers, just like with a lot of teams here, especially picking later on in this first round. I think a lot of ways they can end up going. I don't think there's too many bad picks here. I will say I think now just with the performances of some of these quarterbacks, like from the Senior Bowl, I do think quarterback is out of option here first round. I think they will address that at a later point in this draft. I think some of those guys are falling, but here though, as you talked about, I think there's so many different ways they can go, and it would just be a solid pick. So moving on to the second pick. The Pittsburgh Steelers end up taking Derrick Harmon, beefing up that defensive interior here. I do think the trenches is an area that they are going to focus on, and a guy like Derrick Harmon out of Oregon, he had a really good season. He had a bunch of hurries, especially from the defensive tackle position, and also too, I will say, being like a Pac-12s team, traveling around to also like more Big Ten schedule. Typically, I've always thought at least the Big Ten is going to have some pretty dominant trenches, and for him to have the numbers that he's had was, I think, a good indicator that he's going to do well I think in playing on Sunday, and I think he would be a great compliment to T.J. Watt and the bull rush that he has. I think keep beefing up that interior. But once again, though, too very solid spot. I think for the Pittsburgh Steelers to get some good depth at the receiver position as well.
Yeah, and that's if they don't go receiver in the first round,
Yeah,
obviously. But no, I like Derrick Harmon. I think that could be he would be a good long term running mate for Keanu Benton, especially as Cam Hayward I believe Cam Hayward's like in his mid to late 30s at this point. So that he could be a decent replacement for him. But yeah, there are a few other options that they could go, and if they want to pass on wide receiver early, this would be a really good spot for them to do that. Let's move on now to their third and final pick in this mock draft. So Dylan Sampson, the running back from Tennessee, really versatile guy, really just solid running back all around. He runs between the tackles well. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can beat guys in foot races. Just a really good back. And if Najee Harris is not re-signed, I don't expect them to make a move early on in this draft, especially with how deep this running back class is. And I think that you can go and get a Dylan Sampson and really just solidify that running back room. I think him and is Jalen Warren a free agent also?
yeah,
He
yeah. They're
is.
both free agents.
Well, okay. So then, if they don't resign both of them, then you definitely need to address this with a top 100 pick. But Dylan Sampson can be a bell cow back and really be the main ball carrier out of the backfield.
It's extremely possible. I also think though too, going back, I think that was the first draft we did of
It
the
was.
Tracy take.
It was.
Was when they drafted Najee Harris, and I think one of the unique things about the Pittsburgh Steelers draft so far during the entirety of the Tracy take is I think they've gone an offensive player every year in the first round, and so I think Najee Harris has had a fine career at Pittsburgh, but if they would want to go with Amari Hampton and just give it to him, I would totally understand that also. And so how they address the running back position is going to be very interesting. We have seen them go early or like use high value picks for running backs. And so to your point, Dylan Sampson, great running back here, but it's possible that they use their running back
Yeah.
spot here in their first or second pick. And honestly, too, just going back then based off history within that Najee Harris draft, their next pick was Pat Fryermuth. So it's possible I could see a scenario where they do go Omari and Hampton and then Jalen Royals, where they really try and just increase the overall skill position players on that team. And I wouldn't hate that. I think if you're Steelers fans, would you hate that? Like, I think that would be very solid to do. It's I think at minimum, Omari and Hampton is comparable to Najee Harris, Jalen Warren combo. Like the guy's that good, and then you get a very solid receiver in Jalen Royals or Ty Felton or Sabian Williams or whoever. You know that's going to be available around that second round pick. So we've seen the Steelers do that in the past. If they end up going more in the trenches or more on the defensive side of the ball, I will get that also. I just really admire and respect the way the Pittsburgh Steelers like have run their organization and like they have this Steelers way of football. Like it's still wild. They're on their third coach in the past 50 years, I think.
Yeah.
Just goes to show you the consistency and how much they have uh, um, their system down pat. So they have a system, and they typically have drafted well. I feel, uh, um, and I think they're going to do it again in this upcoming draft.
Yeah. They always do, like, they draft well, but I always feel like they make strange picks. Like not like Cole Strange, but like the Najee Harris one. Like that was like a good player on the board at that time. It just didn't really like fill a need. Like, and like I felt like you could have gotten the value later, but they always still end up getting good players.
Yeah, but let me look it up here real quick. It's with the stats. I'm pretty sure Najee Harris has been 1,000-yard rusher every year that
No,
he's been a Pittsburgh Steeler. Like, so
no, but
do I
that's what I
agree with
mean.
you?
Like,
Was it expected? No, but
yeah,
they got a. Uh, Let me double check this here. Yeah, so he's been 1,000-yard rusher all 4 years in Pittsburgh, and they got him. They got 4,000-yard rushing seasons from a running back for like $2 million a year or something like that with a rookie contract. So they move on from him, and then you go get Amari Hampton, who can catch the ball a lot better out of the backfield. Well, I say that though, Najee Harris had a bunch of receptions throughout his 180 receptions throughout his career. So it's like I would get why they want to move on from Najee Harris because there just is a difference.
Yeah.
Like if you didn't want to pay him, because I don't think he's going to be worth like the 10 or $11 million that he's probably going to get, and you replace him with a running back that's comparable to him, if not better, in Amari Hampton
Yeah.
or Caleb Johnson, for example, that could reproduce these numbers, I think, pretty easily if he stays healthy.
Yeah. No, and exactly. But that's what I mean. Like, I feel like they will not re-sign Najee Harris, and then they'll go draft like a safety. Like they'll get Malachi Starks in this class, but then like in the 5th round they'll get some guy that like RJ Harvey, and he'll come in and he'll be their 1,000-yard back. Like that's what I mean by like they make strange picks of like they get guys that I guess are supposed to go in that range, but it doesn't necessarily like fill their need or like fill a hole on their roster. And so like that's kind of how I felt throughout their like the Tracy take with like their drafting is they just kind of draft, I guess, whoever they feel is best for their organization or the best player available and go from there. And so I am really curious to kind of see how the Steelers organization does draft in a draft class where there's a lot of parity. There's not a lot of separation from one
Yeah.
prospect to the next.
I'll be honest, I'm a little confused with your point because I think that's the point is you're supposed to draft players that fit your organization and do well. But like I'm also stupid. So maybe I'm not understanding. So
So, okay, let me see if I can do it this way. So, like, there will be like, so for the Najee Harris pick specifically, there were defensive players on the board that would have come in and filled a need for them immediately that were at or in the same tier as Najee Harris, if not maybe ahead, and they still took Najee Harris. Najee Harris has been a great pick and he's been productive.
So Najee Harris was taken 24th overall by Pittsburgh. Next pick, Travis Etienne, Greg Newsome to Cleveland, Rashad Bateman to Baltimore, Peyton Turner to New Orleans, Eric Stokes to Green Bay, Greg Rousseau to Buffalo, Odafe Owe to Baltimore, Joe Tyron Shroyanka
Okay.
to Tampa Bay at 32. Then there's
It,
a couple of guys to kick off the beginning of the second round.
and maybe I'm
Um,
misremembering it, but in the moment, it always feels like they make odd picks. I don't know.
I guess maybe in the moment, but at the same time though too, that's why we don't work for Pittsburgh, and that's why
Yeah, and that's
that's
fair.
that's
That's
why
very
Mike.
fair. That's why we have a stupid podcast that we do, and
Yeah, a little
it,
blog as our mom calls
it
it. But
yeah.
I think it also like maybe I think to maybe help with your point a little bit though is I think it goes to show the greatness of a coach. I think Mike Tomlin. I know people are frustrated with him, but it's like
Mhm.
it is not easy to always have a winning record or to never have a losing record. Because I know one person on the internet one time said he had an 8-8 record, and so that's technically not a winning record. And so, but like to always be like above average every single year, especially too in that division. And so I think they're able to coach guys up. I think they know the way that they want to play football. I think he fits that system
Mhm.
really well. Um, I I think maybe they're kind of stuck with where they're at right now because like maybe they need to have a really bad season so then they can go and just draft like a blue chip stud. But at the same time though too, they keep giving themselves opportunities in the playoffs to go and win the Lombardi Trophy. So um, I think they'll do it again this year. I think they're going to draft well. It's just as I think that they always have drafted pretty well, especially too like here. And let's just finish up this argument right now after this. Let's just go back and look at their past couple of draft classes.
Well, okay, so, like, they've done well, I believe Broderick Jones, and then no, George Pickens was 3 draft classes ago
So
in
Troy
2022.
Fatanu, Zach Frazier, Roman Wilson, Peyton Wilson, Mason McCormick, Logan Lee, and Ryan Watts. I know Fatanu, like he got hurt, but I like that pick.
Yeah,
Zach Frazier's played well. Roman Wilson, I think also he was a little hurt, and so he hasn't played too much. Peyton Wilson's done well. Broderick Jones, Joey Porter Jr. has been great. Keanu Benton's a starter. Darnell Washington's really starting to come on strong. Nick
yeah,
Herbig um, is good. He got hurt. Kenny Pickett, amazing pick right there. George Pickens, DeMarvin Lee. I'm joking, also by the way. Connor Hayward, Calvin Austin as well. Uh, Najee Harris, Pat Fryermuth. This is 2021 now.
m
Dan Moore. He's going to be a free agent. He's going to get paid.
yeah,
Um, and
and
so,
maybe I'm letting so, like, my reactions when the picks are made, like and I'm mostly talking about, like, the Kenny Pickett or the Najee Harris picks, like, those just feel like weird picks to me in the moment. The Kenny Pickett one turned out to be a weird pick or like the wrong pick as a whole, just because he wasn't a franchise quarterback that was taken in the first round. But
Yeah.
uh, the Najee Harris one, I just felt like they had other needs that they could have addressed at that point. And so this does feel maybe a little bit similar to that for me. But I don't know. Maybe I'm also just trying to make sense of something in my head that isn't coming out correctly. So
That happens to all of us.
yeah.
It's so, but no, it's going to be interesting what Pittsburgh does over these next couple of months to kind of see how they approach free agency, see who they end up signing. It will definitely be telling. If they don't sign, just to wrap this up, if they don't sign Najee Harris or Jalen Warren, then I absolutely think like running back is on the table for them, whether it be Amari Hampton,
Oh, 100%.
whether that be Caleb Johnson, whether that be Travion Henderson. So I think there's a lot of different routes that they can end up going.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of the Steelers 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And other than that, we'll see you guys next time.